It's just 1050. Stop the car! Stop the car! Turn the car off now! Turn it off! Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired! Tom, shots fired! Tom, you had the vehicle hit me. Stop the car! Stop the car! Turn the car off now! Turn it off! Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired! Tom, shots fired! Tom, you had the vehicle hit me.
What is good, my people? We are live back again with another episode of The Forecast. Now, a couple of years ago down in Orlando, a young brother, 17-year-old brother by the name of Karvas Gamble, who was just chilling in his own house playing video games and ended up getting shot by the police. Now, let's go back and find out how this young brother, who was sitting in his own house minding his own business, playing the game, managed to make police officers fear for their life enough to shoot him dead.
We want justice!
We want justice!
A protest against those who protect and serve Orlando.
I want the police to be accountable for killing and shooting my son.
Tangela Trippett's 19-year-old son, Karvas Gamble, was shot by Orlando police in January. His brother Kareem watched it happen.
I heard, bah! I looked down, everybody got low and ran to the back.
Police got a tip that drugs were inside the building. According to the grand jury's report, officers surrounded the place. One officer peeked through a window and saw Gamble reaching for a gun. He screamed, "Police, don't touch the gun," then fired.
He had a broom in his hand. He was shot from the side.
The grand jury criticized OPD, writing, "Little planning went into this operation. The officers and the public was jeopardized by 8 armed officers acting more or less independently. They said this should have never happened, but stopped short of calling the officers' actions criminal."
We want justice! We want justice!
Protesters say justice was not served.
Only God gonna choose who actually was right and who actually was wrong, and they know they was wrong for killing my brother.
Police say they did find drugs and guns inside the recording studio.
I think they just trigger happy. They just, it's young black males, trying to do something with their life. They wasn't into any drugs now. Now it's a church and a recording studio. They need to go to jail. They need to be held accountable for what they did.
So this young brother was just sitting in his house minding his own business. And originally, they said the police got a call or a tip that it was something going on with drugs or some kind of illegal activity going on at that house, and that's why they were there. Now, eventually, we find out the police were there doing a quote-unquote knock and talk. It says on January 16, 2013, police received a tip about marijuana in a home and conducted a warrantless search called a knock and talk. So apparently Florida is allowed to have a procedure that completely violates the 4th Amendment and apparently do it so much that they gave it a name, called it knock and talk. And an alleged tip about marijuana to the police in the midst of trying to help all of these drug addicts in America and having drug take-back day and all of that. So an alleged tip to the police about weed was enough to surround this man's crib with the police and be able to, just go in and search it without any kind of warrants or any kind of government sanction. They can just do what they want to do. So all of a sudden, this police officer just pops up in Karves Gamble's window, and he claims that he saw a gun. Now, God forbid this young brother exercise his Second Amendment right and bear arms to be able to protect himself, which is literally in the Constitution as why people are able to bear guns, to protect themselves and their property. And the police says, oh, he had a gun, and he says that he saw him reaching for it. But even if he did, just imagine sitting in your room and somebody just all of a sudden pop up at your window and start yelling and saying, don't move, and shooting. Because we see how quick those gunshots come after they give you a commandment. And this cop says he saw him reaching for a gun, so he feared for his life and had to shoot him. He had no other choice. Now, I don't know how many constitutional laws that they broke with this one incident, and who knows how many other incidents. And the grand jury pretty much said everything they did was wrong. They did everything but press charges. And the state attorney at the time, Jeff Ashton, he decided that the shooting was justified. It may be wrong, but it was certainly justified.
Within the first 2 weeks of becoming state attorney, I attended a briefing about a police shooting. The young man's last name was Gamble. I think it's Karvas Gamble. Karves, as I recall. This was a case where 8 heavily armed SWAT-dressed police officers approached a house to do a consensual knock and talk. They surrounded the house. One of them went to a back window and looked in and saw this 17-year-old boy sitting playing a video game. Other officers went to the front and were prepared to knock. You also saw a gun sitting on a couch. And when the officer knocked, the young man looked up and saw somebody standing in his window. Whether he could see it was a police officer, we'll never know. And he went for that gun, and that police officer shot him dead. Now, that act of the officer was justified because he went for the gun. But why was he there? And you know what I did? I convened a grand jury. And I took that matter to the grand jury, and out of that grand jury came a presentment, which is a report which said that OPD made huge mistakes. Why did you have to be there armed? Why did you have to be there in a mosque? Why did you have to be at that back window for a consensual encounter? And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? That was 3 months before Michael Brown was shot in Ferguson. I didn't need to somebody to tell me that that young man's life mattered. I took that to a grand jury because I thought what OPD did was wrong. And my grand jury came up with a report that said that. And you know who reported it? No one. That's what I think about the lives of individuals.
So despite whatever the cops do wrong, despite the city of Orlando agreeing to pay Karvas Gamble's mother $760,000 in a settlement, they still decided not to move forward with the charges. Because after all, of course, they feared for their life. Despite the recent track record of the Orlando police and how much police brutality they really do. Look at how much money the city of Orlando has to pay out in settlements because of police brutality. Still no charges. And a lot of these things ended up leading to Aramis Ayala deciding to run for state attorney so she can actually make a difference. Instead of complaining, she went out there and ran for office, and she actually won. She ran her campaign based off gaining equality in the justice system, trying to get justice for our people. She got into office trying to do things to change the system, and it made everybody mad, and they tried to take her power away from her because she didn't want to have the death penalty. Now, this is still America, and we are still living under other people's system. So it shouldn't be any surprise that when her case went to the Supreme Court, they ruled against her.
This decision by the Florida Supreme Court delivers a major blow to the state attorney's office. Aramis Ayala has only been on this job for 8 months, and with 3 years left in her term, there are questions tonight about what her office can accomplish going forward. Investigative reporter Christopher Heath continues our team coverage for us. Chris, live in the studio. And Chris, it is hard to say this isn't an office that's been diminished.
Greg, it's important to keep in mind that capital murder cases are just a very small fraction of the total caseload coming through this office. However, they're usually the most heinous and high profile, and for now, they're out of her hands. What's next for Orange Osceola State Attorney Aramis Ayala?
Good morning. Welcome to the Florida Supreme Court.
After losing in the Supreme Court, Ayala seemingly out of options, and the 29 death penalty cases taken from her won't come back. This is a brutal decision for Aramis Ayala.
Saying brutal is an understatement.
Former Chief Judge Belvin Perry says the decision strikes at the heart of what a state attorney is supposed to be, calling into question her understanding of Florida law.
Her status as state attorney as a result of this opinion by the Florida Supreme Court diminishes her throughout this state and throughout this circuit.
Late today, Ayala's office issued its own statement saying she would set up a panel to review cases eligible for the death penalty. Her attorney followed with his own statement saying the creation of the panel would be, quote, well within the Florida Supreme Court's ruling, and all cases should be returned to her and no further cases should be removed from her. Judge Perry doubts if much can be done to recover, though, from this ruling.
But you got to ask yourself, what does this opinion do for the morale of this particular office?
LA today, I got a phone call from State Representative Bob Cortez. He's traveling in Puerto Rico. His district, though, includes the northern part of Orange County, and he renewed his call for Ayala to be suspended. Now, so far, he's the only member of the Orange Osceola delegation that has taken that step, although others could come forward in the weeks to come.
So this woman who did not seek the death penalty, and they decided to take all of her cases away from her, and of course ruled against her in the Supreme Court. But the state attorneys who agree with cops just coming to somebody's house and shooting them and letting them walk away, that doesn't deserve having your cases taken away. Now, Aramis Ayala is doing everything that she can, but she can't do it alone. We all have to do something. And this is the reason why we all have to go for offices in our local community, so we can be the state attorneys, so we can be the district representatives, the people who make decisions in our local areas, especially our local areas. There aren't enough black lawyers and judges to have these people who stand up for us back. They forced them to back down at the end of the day. Judge Olu Stevens, he had to back down and apologize. And they charged him. He had to cop a plea. And all he did was not let a black defendant have an all-white jury. Meanwhile, you have judges who let white boys get off with all kind of rapes. You know, we see all of these allegations of rape coming out, and we don't see any charges coming out. It's people in actual political positions of power who are doing illegal things and not getting charged. But these people who are not doing anything illegal, they are getting charged or ruled against in court. Now, of course, at the end of the day, anytime we have to go back to their courts to make a ruling on behalf of us, especially against them, whose side do you think they're going to be on? This is the reason we have to build our own nation. But we have to start locally first. We have to work together to build what we can build right now, to have our own police force, to build our own economy so we can give each other jobs. We have to build organizations to make sure that our American rights, our civil rights, our human rights are not violated. And if they do, they come with consequences. And we have to realize every time we have tried to build something like that, they have come to attack it. And we have to realize this. And we have to protect ourselves from this. So RIP to the brother Karvas Gamble. But at the end of the day, we all we got. Ain't nothing gonna change if we don't change it.
New tonight, the Orlando Police Department faces a lawsuit in the shooting death of a 19-year-old last year. A grand jury found Karvas Gamble should never have been gunned down, but declined to charge any of the 8 officers involved. West 2's Amanda Ober is live with this new development outside the Orlando Police Department. Amanda?
Jim, the written notice of this pending lawsuit was dropped off here at the Orlando Police headquarters this morning by Karves Gamble's own mother. The police now have 6 months to respond, and during that time, it's possible they may settle with the family. If not, this could go to court. Tangela Lippett, the mother of 19-year-old Karves Gamble, delivered a written notice to the Orlando Police of her intent to sue the agency and the city over her son's shooting death.
It hurts to know that the police officers are around here killing young black African-American men for no reason.
19-year-old Karves Gamble was shot and killed by Orlando police in January of 2013. Police got a report drugs could be found at a home where Gamble and some friends were hanging out. 8 officers surrounded the house, and one who looked through a porch window claimed he saw Gamble reach for a gun and yelled at him to stop. Then the officer shot Gamble. Police claim guns were found in the house, but Gamble's friends dispute that.
I just want to feel relief that the officer that shot him gets what he deserves. Because I know for a fact he didn't reach for no gun.
A grand jury ruled that little planning went into the operation and that the officers in public was jeopardized by 8 armed officers acting more or less independently. But it did not find cause for criminal charges against police. The lawsuit Gamble's mother plans to file seeks monetary damages, but she has another demand.
Justice will be for the officers to go to jail to get what they deserve, because he had no weapon. You understand what I'm saying?
Now, Orlando police would not react to today's event, saying they don't comment on pending litigation. The police department did make some changes to its so-called knock and talk policies following the shooting of Gamble. Those changes came after an appeals court ruled that police can't walk onto porches, patios, or even in backyards without either the resident's permission or a search warrant.
On the clock. You understand, you stupid mother.
I know you didn't touch him. I'm recording it.
I didn't touch him. I grabbed your phone. Don't move. Listen, so I was coming to the military. In the house. He never got out. That's good. He's just here. Go. He's not scared at all. Young man. Hey, young man. You're okay. Get up. Go. Here you go. You been made?
Refus, stop.
Get back over there.
Hey, we sitting on the porch and we see this.
Girl, they weren't fighting. The police, I think the boys went walking and they went running after them or whatever. And so that police kicked that one.
Excuse me, can I talk to you? So why did he hit him? Why did he kick him?
I just got in. I don't know what's going on. I
okay.
Got here.
I don't really know why he put his hands on him.
That's
why he kicked him.
Other side.
Like, why did he kick him and spray them with mace? Like, there was no cause for that.
I'm going to be the first one to tell you, I don't know what's going on. I just got called.
Investigators have just released new details on the internal affairs investigation into former Orlando police officer William Escobar, who was fired yesterday after accusations of excessive force. West 2's Gail Pascal Brown is live in Orange County with the breaking developments. Gail?
Yeah, I'm here at the Orlando Police Department where they did give us this, and on this is the body cam video of Donald Acentra. He's a backup officer that arrived on the scene, and by the time he gets there, Rufus Holloway and other men are on the ground, and you do see Rufus Holloway being kicked.
I know you didn't touch him. I'm recording it.
Last March, Orlando police officer William Escobar was caught on cell phone video kicking and punching a handcuffed Rufus Holloway.
Escobar.
Today, Orlando police just released another angle of the beating from a body cam worn by another police officer. The camera hangs over the officer's ear.
When you see the body cam video just in it of itself, it's not concerning. When you see the entire video, the cell phone video, and then the body cam video, that kind of pieces things together.
Family members say Holloway was trying to break up a fight at his relative's house on Benson Avenue in Orlando. Orlando Police Chief John Mina fired the 3-year veteran officer Wednesday.
The actions of Officer Escobar that night do not reflect the overall actions, performance, and behavior of the Orlando Police Department or our commitment and dedication to keeping this community safe.
In the Internal Affairs report, Officer William Escobar testified, "The way I told you the incident happened, that's the way it happened. That's the way I remembered it. Obviously, I can't dispute what the video shows." Holloway's sister recorded her brother being kicked on her cell phone. At one point, another officer attempted to take her phone, telling her they had to take her phone. The sister told the officer, "I'm not going to give you my phone." Now, that video also shows that after Rufus Holloway was put into the patrol car, his sister went up to the officer that was wearing the body cam and said, "You know, why'd you have to do that? Why'd you have to beat him? I got it all on tape."
Like he was bothering anyone or posed any threat of any sort to the police officers.
This video is why those officers are now under investigation. The woman you just heard watched from her balcony as the 2 officers kicked a man. Why, she says she took out her phone and started recording. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Ginger Gadsden.
Glad you're with us. I'm Matt Austin. Now, after that video surfaced, the police chief says he has launched an investigation.
New tonight, Local 6's Eric Von Anken is live on Orange Avenue where the incident happened Thursday night and where that man was eventually arrested. And Eric, that man is now charged with battery on a law enforcement officer?
Absolutely right, Ginger. And this is where the man and the officers were, on this sidewalk and across the street up on that 3rd floor balcony. Well, that's where the woman was who was taking this video. And it seems that she caught the tail end of what police described to be a very dangerous struggle trying to arrest this guy.
The video shows an Orlando police officer kicking a man. Then you can hear the sound of a taser being fired.
Get on your stomach! Behind your back! Put your hands behind your back!
The officers keep yelling and kicking, even tasering the man until he finally rolls over onto his stomach.
So right here you can see the officer kicking at him.
This woman, who asked us not to use her name, recorded the incident on her cell phone from her 3rd-story apartment balcony overlooking Orange Avenue.
The police officer was kicking him multiple times, and the guy was just sitting there minding his business. It doesn't seem like he was bothering anyone or posed any threat of any sort to the police officers.
She says the man in the video, identified by police as Noel Carter, a 30-year-old from South Florida, was not resisting arrest, but police tell us the video only shows what happened at the end of what the officers describe as a violent, exhausting struggle with Carter. The 2 officers, David Cruz and Charles Mays, say they spotted Carter walking down Orange Avenue, grabbing and pushing his former girlfriend. They say Carter was drunk, wouldn't put his hands behind his back, lunged towards them, wrestled with them, punched Officer Mays, and then ran away, even after being pepper sprayed and tased several times. Officer Cruz writes in his report, quote, "At this point, taser, baton strikes, and chemical agent did not have any effect on Carter. Due to Carter's upper body strength, he could not be detained and was still actively resisting us. I decided to deliver foot strikes using the top of my foot in order to maintain distance and in hopes Carter would comply," end of quote.
And by the end of the struggle, the officers say that they were scraped up and their eyes were burning from that pepper spray. I asked police if there's any body camera footage. They say the officers were not wearing body cams, but they do say, Ginger, that they are working on 911 calls and radio transmissions. As soon as I get them, of course, we'll pass them on to you. We'll play them for you.
Yeah, we know you're working on getting that. But, Eric, what about Noel Carter, the man in that video? Do we know anything about where he is tonight?
All we know for sure, Ginger, is that he is not in the Orange County Jail. I checked with them. He has bonded out.
Well, I'd like to address some of the things that were misrepresented by just what was told to the individuals here tonight. The individuals who work in that office attempting to say that there's diversity, there is absolutely no diversity in the executive level of Mr. Ashton's office. I was there. There are, if you look at the numbers and the ability to maintain blacks and other minorities, it is non-existent. I am one of them. If you look at the pay for those who belong to minorities, who belong to minority groups, blacks in particular. If you look at their pay for the positions relative to what others are being paid, it's not consistent. So to sit here today and to misrepresent to an audience here that there is diversity in that office, that it is a strong misrepresentation. I was there. In addition to that, minorities may be present, but they're not heard. The discussions that need to go on in the office don't exist. There are problems with how the office is functioning, the lack of the domestic violence division, the lack of the promotions, the lack of the consistency as it relates to intake and output in the office do not exist. There is a particular case that I talk about very frequently where there is a black male who was driving down 408. He was pulled over because he had a firearm and was charged with road rage. That road rage incident is an aggravated assault. It requires a 3-year minimum mandatory sentence in prison. Rightly so. When you pull a gun, you should serve the time. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison. The problem is, on the turnpike, white male, 36 years old, also, same day, 4 hours later, pulled over on the turnpike. His sentence, it wasn't even a sentence. His aggravated assault charge was reduced to an improper exhibition for him to serve a period of diversion where his case was dismissed. So while he is free to move on with his life, there is a black male who is incarcerated right now serving a 3-year sentence. I know because I spoke directly to the child's mother. So the misrepresentation and the misleading is it is a facade and it is not consistent. If you want to get involved in the black community, you use individuals who have connections in the black community. I've been a president of the local Black Bar Association, both city and state. I'm a member of the black church and have been my entire life. And I have experience on both sides of the law. The use of me in that office didn't exist. So I decided that instead of working for Mr. Ashton, I was ready to work directly for the people.
Now let me ask you.
So knowing that people don't even know what a state attorney does, that is a problem. Until you've had a gun in your face and you've been a victim of crime, that's when you learn what a state attorney is. It's more important for people to know before they become a victim of crime or before their son or daughter has been accused of one. So getting involved in the community, educating the community, being present long after the campaign, because I have been involved in the community before I ever considered running. I'm involved now as an individual, and I can assure you I will continue to be involved, me and a team after elected. It is about being educated, communicating, and being involved in the community. That's what I can consistently say. It is what my plan is and has been since I decided to run for office. I am every bit of a black woman raised in Saginaw, Michigan, who is not a pawn of anybody. So let's really make that clear. I made a decision to run office for myself when I saw the issues in the community. When you look at Maryland, when you look at Baltimore, when you look at the shootings across this country, there is a disconnect between law enforcement and the people. Someone must be willing to be that bridge. Someone must be willing to say, I can understand the community and I can understand law enforcement. I'm not afraid as a Democratic candidate to stand out and say, yes, there are civil rights issues. There are police brutality issues. There are race issues, and be willing to address them. That is a responsibility. So for me, in addressing that issue with law enforcement, I have to be willing to show up at a funeral and discuss what has happened to that black male. I have to be willing to go down to law enforcement stations and say, this officer didn't deserve to be shot, because what we have lost is the love for humanity. We don't treat people like they deserve to live anymore. So when someone is killed, we justify it because of their criminal history. We justify it because of what they were doing. There is a thing called humanity that I will bring back to the office, that I want to show law enforcement that there are human beings who matter. Part of the state attorney's responsibility is accountability. So what I want to offer is a data system that allows us to keep a system and keep numbers of individuals who have been impacted and how they've been impacted. The reason that this came up is because of the 1020 life law. If you're caught carrying a weapon in the commission of a felony, 10 years. If the weapon is discharged, 20 years. If it goes off, then it's 25 to life. Because of that, there are a lot of times that we don't honor that minimum mandatory. The charges are changed and it's amended because it's warranted. There are times that it is warranted, but we need to be consistent for the public to trust us on how we are arriving at the type of cases that we are reducing it. So if we offer a data that goes to Tallahassee for several reasons so that we can say these are our reports of the demographics of those who had minimum